Episode 3. Let's get right into it. Here we go.
Spider-Man worked in No Way Home, and the three Batmen didn't work at all in The Flash. But why? These are two of the most popular superheroes in the world, played by beloved actors, and both movies leaned heavily on nostalgia. But the audience reception was very different. No Way Home made $1.9 billion thanks to the Spider-Verse. People clapped like crazy when Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man took off his mask. We memorized Tobey Maguire's lines, and fans were willing to pay for an extended version just to see more of Andrew, Tom, and Tobey interacting. It's also one of the best-rated superhero movies in history, with a 97% fan approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Meanwhile, The Flash was a massive box office bomb, barely scraping together $270 million worldwide. Even with 3 different Batmen, Warner is looking at $200 million in losses because most people just didn't go see it. And the few who did watch it in cinemas didn't react the same way as in No Way Home. The audience's reactions to seeing Andrew and Tobey were like this. But when Keaton, Affleck, and Clooney showed up, it was more like this. Meh. There are 5 reasons that explain this difference in audience reception. First reason is expectations. People packed theaters on opening day for No Way Home, not just because Spider-Man is insanely popular, but because Marvel and Sony nailed the marketing. For months, they teased a possible appearance from Andrew and Tobey, with Jamie Foxx saying he was happy to play Electro again. A supposedly leaked video of Andrew surfaced on social media, and Alfred Molina appeared in one of the trailers.
Hello, Peter.
We all expected the 3 Spider-Men to be in the movie. Nobody believed Andrew when he denied it, and leaked photos of the 3 actors on set pretty much confirmed it. Fans even noticed in the Brazil trailer that something had been edited out of the fight scene. Likely Tobey's Spider-Man kicking the lizard right on the face. But no one could be 100% sure. There was still a slim chance Marvel was trolling us, just like in Far From Home, when the multiverse turned out to be one of Mysterio's lies. We had to know if Andrew and Tobey would show up, so we rushed to the theater in the first week to avoid spoilers. No one was about to stay home and let some jerk spoil the surprise with a Facebook post. But that didn't happen with The Flash. We saw Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton in all the trailers, so there were no surprises there. Keaton's Batman even shared the poster with Flash and Supergirl, so seeing Keaton in Wayne Manor wasn't a shocking moment, like Andrew and Tobey's first appearance at Ned's house. This isn't about scene quality. Some might even say Keaton's reveal was handled better than Andrew's. Keaton's scene didn't rely on bad CGI, or the convenient plot point of Ned learning magic in 2 seconds. But I still remember how my heart raced when I realized Andrew's silhouette wasn't Holland's Spider-Man. I still remember celebrating when Andrew appeared because I wanted him to show up, but Marvel hadn't confirmed it. Now don't get me wrong, Keaton's scene was fine. It starts off funny, with him looking like a drunk trying to take on a psycho, and an idiot with the Flash's powers. Once the fight's over, we see Keaton's face, and things get serious. We instantly know he hasn't worn the cape in years, but he's still sharp and fit, and just as paranoid as ever. It works, but because we'd already seen Keaton in the trailers, people didn't lose their minds in the theater.
Is that clear?
Without surprises, there was no hype, and no speculation from fans before the movie's release. Nobody spent months biting their nails, wondering if Affleck and Keaton would show up, unlike what happened with Andrew and Tobey. Warner put them in the promo material from day one, so there was just one actual surprise: George Clooney's cameo at the end of the film. Warner didn't even include this scene in press screenings to prevent leaks, because they expected it to top Andrew and Tobey's appearances in No Way Home. But that didn't work either, because of the second reason: the actors they picked. In total, there are 5 actors who've played Spider-Man in live action. Nicholas Hammond in the 70s, Shinji Todo in a Japanese series, Tobey Maguire in Sam Raimi's trilogy, Andrew Garfield in The Amazing Spider-Man, and Tom Holland in the MCU. Marvel and Sony made the logical decision: bring back the 2 most popular versions, Andrew and Tobey, alongside the current Spider-Man, played by Tom Holland. It seems super simple, but No Way Home wouldn't have had the same cultural impact if they'd brought in Nicholas Hammond instead, because most people haven't watched his show.
I don't know who he is.
Batman's case is very different. There have been 14 live-action versions of the Caped Crusader. Lewis Wilson and Robert Lowry in the 40s, Adam West in the 60s, Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, and George Clooney in the 90s, Christian Bale in the 2000s, David Mazouz and Mikhail Mudrik in The Gotham Show, Ben Affleck in the DCU, Ian Glenn in Titans, Kevin Conroy in the Arrowverse, Robert Pattinson in The Batman, and David Miller in Gotham Knights. If Warner could only pick 3 Batmen, they had to rule out the actors who had already passed away, and they had to include Affleck since he shared a universe with Ezra Miller's Flash. But for the other 2 spots, they had a lot to choose from. Keaton was a solid choice because he starred in 2 of the best Batman movies. Plus, he's an amazing actor who never turned his back on superhero movies. He even showed up in Homecoming as Vulture, and he is super famous, so he can draw people to the theaters because he's a big name. What I don't get is why choosing Clooney as the 3rd Batman. They picked the one with the bat nipples, the guy who starred in one of the worst superhero movies ever.
Unacceptable. As an owner of Walton Goggins goggle glasses, I know how to make slick-looking goggle/glasses. But I have no...
Before you think I have some personal grudge against the actor, I know the bad reputation of Batman and Robin isn't Clooney's fault. He didn't write the script, he wasn't in charge of directing, and he had nothing to do with the costume design. I don't even think he was a bad choice to play Batman back then. He's got the charisma to pull off Bruce Wayne. But it's super weird that Warner picked him as their third Batman, because everyone at the studio knew what people thought about Batman and Robin. Even Clooney himself apologized multiple times for that movie because he knew fans hated it.
I always apologize for Batman. I actually thought I destroyed the franchise.
The final scene in The Flash would have worked way better if we'd seen Pattinson's Batman. People still had him fresh in their minds, since The Flash came out just 1 year after the Batman. And if they didn't want to include Pattinson because they weren't sure what they were doing with the DCU, and didn't want to confuse people, they could have gone with Christian Bale. He's the favorite Batman of an entire generation, and for many, he's got the best Batman movies. That would have hyped up the fans. It would have been a direct hit of nostalgia, like when Tobey's Spider-Man showed up in No Way Home. But Bale didn't even get a cameo in the Chrono Ball scene. Warner and Andy Muschietti thought it was better to throw in a bunch of CGI dolls instead.
Disappointed!
But wait, Clooney was a terrible choice, and his scene was poorly executed, but Keaton is loved and well known. Shouldn't his appearance have been enough to match the 3 Spider-Men? The truth is, no, because of the third reason, the age of the actors and the age of the audience. Before No Way Home, we went 14 years without seeing Tobey's Spider-Man, and 9 years without seeing Andrew's. For some, that might feel like a lifetime, but the important thing is this. If you saw Spider-Man 3 in theaters at 10 years old, then you saw The Amazing Spider-Man 2 at 15, and No Way Home at 24. That's exactly the age range superhero movies are targeting. According to a 2019 survey by Laura Carollo, 66% of adults between 18 and 29 watch at least one superhero movie a year in the US, but the percentage drops as the age group increases. In English, that means the older you are, the less likely you are to go see a superhero movie in cinemas. And yeah, I know kids and teenagers went to see No Way Home, along with older folks. But if you don't believe me, just look at the age of the people who attend Marvel movie premieres. 90% of them are between 20 and 30 years old. Not 15, and definitely not 40.
Trust me, bro.
No Way Home tapped into millennial nostalgia, aiming at the core audience of the MCU and superhero movies in general. That's why people got so hyped, and why No Way Home broke box office records. They knew exactly who they were targeting. It's the same thing they did with Deadpool and Wolverine, aiming primarily at the same generation, the fans who grew up with these characters and wanted their superheroes to grow up with them. That's why we got so emotional when Octavia says Tobey's Peter has grown so much. It felt like he was talking directly to us, but Batman's situation is completely different. Michael Keaton hadn't put on the suit since 1992, 31 years ago, and the last time we saw Clooney as Batman was in 1997, 26 years ago. This means that if you watched Batman Returns at 10 years old, you were 15 when Batman and Robin came out. So far, it's similar to the Spider-Man case. But by the time The Flash was released, you'd already be 41.
I'm so old!
Of course, there's no rule saying people in their 40s can't go to the movies, and we all know someone in their 40s who's a huge superhero fan. But as much as it hurts to hear, that's not the demographic that typically packs theaters for any type of movie. And based on the survey I just mentioned, they're also not the target audience for superhero films. So most of the audience The Flash was targeting didn't even see Keaton or Clooney as Batman when their movies first came out. And if they did, it was probably on TV or through some streaming platform, years after the original release. And that's not the same thing. These people couldn't form a connection with these versions of Batman because they weren't the Batman of their generation. That connection could have existed with Ben Affleck, but only with him. We're comparing one Batman to 3 Spider-Men, which is not fair. And that's not all. The fourth reason is the interactions between the characters. The magic of No Way Home wasn't just seeing Andrew and Tobey pop up for quick cameos like the ones in the Chrono Ball and The Flash. They interacted with each other. They interacted with Holland. They faced off against the villains from their respective movies. They were key to the movie's third act, helped develop the MCU's Spider-Man, brought back memes, and told us what had happened in their lives since the last time we saw them.
I love you guys.
The magic is in the interaction, seeing them together. All 3 are super charismatic, but they're different versions of Spider-Man, so they each have their own unique traits. Tobey is the most mature, the most confident, the one who knows how to handle his powers and balance all his responsibilities, so he acts as a mentor to the others. Andrew is the funniest, but also the most haunted by his past because of his girlfriend's death. And Tom is the least experienced, and the one who needs the most help, but he's also the only one who knows how to work in a team, thanks to being part of the Avengers. These differences are obvious in every interaction interaction they have, and they make all their conversations super interesting. From Toby telling Andrew not to give up on his life as Peter, to Holland wanting to take the lead because he was in the Avengers. But it wasn't just about good writing. The actors had great chemistry off-screen too. Behind-the-scenes footage showed Toby giving advice to the other two, just like in the movie, and pulling out silly dance moves during group photos. They felt like genuine friends, both in and out of character, and that made fans even more excited. I've avoided calling their appearances cameos this whole time because they had so much screen time and contributed so much to the story that it wouldn't be fair to call them just cameos. None of that happened with the three Batmen. Keaton, Affleck, and Clooney don't share a single scene. There are no fun interactions, no Bat collaboration to solve a Bat problem, and Affleck and Clooney don't even know the other Batmen exist. Only Keaton learns about the multiverse in a conversation with Barry in the Batcave, but it doesn't lead to much. He doesn't ask what Affleck's Batman is like or if they share the same origin story. There's nothing.
Nada.
The closest thing we get to an interaction is a parallel between Keaton and Affleck. Both are marked by the loss of their parents, but they give Barry different advice. Affleck tells him to move on and not mess with the timeline because the past shouldn't be altered, while Keaton encourages him to channel his grief to save his parents, because he would do that too if he could. It's a nice touch, but it doesn't compare to half an hour of three Spider-Men interacting. It might sound a bit nitpicky, but how are we supposed to get excited about seeing three versions of Batman if these three versions never share the screen at any point? And I know what you're thinking.
Imagine that there was somebody who had a perfect memory and could consume and read everything.
We didn't need to see all three Batmen together, because this is a Flash movie, not a Batman movie. That's the fifth reason. The protagonist of the film, the main character in The Flash, is Barry Allen, not Batman. No matter how much Warner tried to sell tickets with Keaton's return and Affleck's farewell, the face of The Flash is, well, Flash.
No shit.
The cameos from other important characters could have helped at the box office, but it would have been like expecting Chris Evans' cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine to guarantee the movie hit 1 billion. Sure, the movie reached that number anyway, but not because of that cameo, or the appearances of Gambit, Elektra, or Blade. Deadpool and Wolverine got fans excited because it was well made, and because of its main characters. Maybe it would have earned a little more if all the Fox X-Men had shown up for a multiverse crossover, but people went to the theater to see Deadpool and Wolverine together. Nobody went just to see cameos, because you could have watched those at home on a pirated copy, or just waited for the cameo scenes to pop up on YouTube. Something similar happened with The Flash regarding the cameo situation. The appearances of Supergirl, the three Batmen, Wonder Woman, and the cameos in the Chrono Ball might have added something, but they weren't going to make a real difference for fans or casual audiences. The thing that was supposed to draw people in was Flash, who was the protagonist of the movie and the center of the story. But that wasn't easy to achieve, because the character hadn't been well developed in the movies, and on top of that, he was played by a criminal.
A public menace.
No Way Home, on the other hand, did depend entirely on Spider-Man, because Spidey was the protagonist, and his name was on all the posters. The two most important guest characters were Spider-Man variants, and all the villains were Spider-Man villains. Even though Tom Holland isn't the most beloved Spider-Man, and his first two movies were very criticized by the fandom, he's still Spider-Man. The equivalent in The Flash would have been seeing Flash variants, like Grant Gustin and John Wesley Shipp, not Batman variants. But Flash couldn't even do that. Grant Gustin wasn't even invited to the premiere, and the only cameo of a Flash variant is a stunt double for Matt Letcher, who shows up for literally 3 seconds and has zero impact on the story. The Flash had no chance of competing with No Way Home, and the three Batmen were never on the same level as the three Spider-Men. But even though the live-action Spider-Verse worked amazingly well, Spider-Man's future in the movies could be even better if Marvel got the rights to Spidey back. We explain how they could make that happen in this video over here.
Don't give me hope.
Grammarly does.
Alright. I'll bring us to the end of that video. That was interesting.